Well, I get a rumble in my stomach when I look at the title of the talk. It says Delhi Belly. And the phrase usually is associated with an upset stomach after splurging on the streets of Delhi. So it becomes a bit tricky. Whether are we going to talk about street foods or street foods which are dangerous, or how do we avoid this Delhi belly, or do we wholeheartedly embrace the Delhi belly? Become a pot-bellied person. There is a restaurant called Pot Belly in Delhi as well, set up by an immigrant Bihari. But let's begin at the beginning. I came to Delhi about 6 decades back, and then all my friends said, "Khana hai, to you must go to Purani Delhi." And what they meant by Purani Delhi was that where we stayed in the environs of Connaught Place was the New Delhi, and Purana Sheher, the walled city, to give it its proper name, Shahjahanabad, was referred to by its denizens as Sheher, was the Purani Delhi. Khana hai to wahan jao. Khana to sirf wahi hai. Then many of them also recited the famous couplet by Zauq, who was the ustad of the last Mughal emperor in poetry. Zauq, who said, "Kaun jaye Zauq ye Delhi ki galiyan chhod kar." And although he was invited to in Deccan, now much of the charm of Delhi has been the street foods. So one can't deny that whether it's safe or unsafe food for tourists, foreigners, and Indians, the street foods in Delhi are, well, quite close to die for. If you take reasonable precautions, you won't perish. And you have the chaat in Delhi, which is supposed to be more delicious than anything else anywhere else in India. There have also been sweet shops. There have been sweet shops like the Ghantewala. And the Ghantewala is a sweet shop, which was set up before the French Revolution, before the American Revolution. And for a very short period during COVID, it had to close operations. There was a bit of a family feud also, but they have, thank God, come back into business. So Delhi was synonymous with Sohan Halwa. Delhi was synonymous with Sindhi, Karachi, Bombay Halwa, call it by whatever name. Uh, and then people, whoever came to Delhi was asked to bring these. Both of them have a very long shelf life. So I also fell for the uh, mythologizing, and I thought that Delhi food was just what was available in the walled city. Then when I embarked on these explorations of Delhi's food in the walled city, I had a very nice friend, Mohammed Siddiq, and Mr. Siddiq's father was a deputy mayor of Delhi. Siddiq said, "Arey, tumhara dimag kharab ho gaya hai. Why do you want to go to a tourist trap like Kareem and Jawahar? I mean, they're nice eating places." But he said, "Look, if you really want to sample Delhi food, you must eat at home. And if you can't get access or wrangle your way to somebody's house, please go to a restaurant called Flora." So he first took us to Flora, which was an extremely nice, well served, elegant meal, very different from what was being offered by Kareem and Al Jawahar. But then he said, "You must come home." And his mother was, bless the lady, was a very open-minded lady, although it was a Parda Nashin household. She said, "Look, bachon ke sang aaye ho, you are like my kids." So we would sit at the doorstep and she would feed us without any barriers from the kitchen. Loveliest Shami kebab sahab hai, aloo ka salan, methi ka keema, and pasande. Now you see, this set me thinking that A, if you are going to sample Delhi food, you should avoid not the street foods all, but the eateries which are sold with a backstory that it was set up by the Shahi Bawarchi of Shah Jahan. Now that is a bit thick, you see, because if you go back to documented history and try to trace the story, Mariam Rishi has done it brilliantly in a column of hers that Haji Karimuddin once sold aloo gosht and rotis on a pushcart. But then he added to his repertoire and became the Shahi Dastarkhan legatee also. Now, interestingly, if you keep the history of Delhi in mind, Delhi has like a cat with 9 lives, died and been reborn and risen like a phoenix. Choose whatever metaphor you have in mind, is more than 9 lives actually. So what happens is if you try to document the food, you would notice that after the mutiny, there was no trace of the Mughaliya legacy in food. So Delhi food goes by Mughaliya food, which I think is the first myth which was exploded for me 6 decades back. And I have not changed my view that the first need to clean the slate is to get rid of the myth of the Mughaliya. The food in Delhi is not only Mughaliya, is not even Mughaliya. Salma Hussain, a very serious scholar who have researched the Mughaliya food. She was a keeper of the Persian manuscripts in the National Museum and translated Nuskha-e Jahangiri, and written great books like beautifully illustrated books which have won international awards like What the Mughals Ate, The Emperor's Table, uh, etc. Now, when you come to these books, you realize that whatever she describes as the what the Mughals ate or what the Mughal spread was, what the Emperor's Table was, has absolutely no connection with what is sold by this name in Delhi at the moment. The reason for that is very simple, because no Mughal emperor after Aurangzeb, and Aurangzeb was not a foodie, he was not a gourmet, he was not a connoisseur, he was a very Spartan, ascetic, orthodox Muslim, and the last 50 years of his life were spent in Deccan. And after his death, there was quick change of about a dozen odd emperors, puppets put on the throne for 2 years, and then no Mughal emperor entered Delhi for 40 years. So, and Aurangzeb died in 1707. So what are we talking about? Delhi did not have a Mughal emperor till 17, let's say 47, 48, and those emperors were powerless. They were, I mean, as the ditty has it, Sultanate Shah Alam as Dilli te Palam, that the poor Shah Alam's empire stretched only from Red Fort till Palam, the village near the southern extremities of Delhi. They were pensioners of British, but even before that, they were dependent for their protection on the mercies of Marathas, the Sikhs, or the Jat rulers like Lala Surajmal. Delhi was repeatedly raided by these people, and the Mughal emperor did not, by the time Bahadur Shah Zafar was enthroned at the age of 68, if memory serves me right, he did not have enough money to pay his soldiers. And there were more than 4,000 Salatin, the children of the cousins, one step removed, two step removed, three step removed, living in the Red Fort. Now, how could they afford to have a lavish imperial meal? Although there are descriptions of such meals in a book called the Bidaya Zafar, the last banquet served to the emperor, written by Munshi Faizuddin, which describes a very lavish meal. But this obviously is a bit of an exaggeration, a bit of romanticizing, a bit of nostalgia being evoked. So I would like to argue that the food in Delhi, A, is not Mughaliya, and what goes even the great Delhi food, you go to Jama Masjid and you walk the Gali Kababian, you head towards Chitri Kabar. I mean, even Kareem serves a very, very delicious barra kebab. You have a very nice ishtu served by Al Jawahar for that matter. You have a great sweet shop, Shirin Bhavan, which serves rare halwas like Kali Gajar ka halwa, Safed Gajar ka halwa, Habshi halwa, and so on. But let's not digress. What I'm trying to say is that Delhi food has evolved over millennia, and there has been a continuity. Is more like a confluence, one culinary stream intermingling with another culinary stream. It is like the rivers, where Ganga is born in Devaprayag, Alaknanda meets Bhagirathi, one darker stream of water, one more uh, fair, and the waters are muddied for a while till they find their natural balance. It happens at all confluences. Same happens to Ganga and Jamna and Prayag. So you go further down and you can repeat the story. So what I would argue is that food in Delhi from the days of Mahabharata has stayed with the city. And we'll develop this theme a little later in the talk. But what I would say is that if you are eating a barra kebab, if you are eating nihari, you should not forget that these were not Mughal foods. Nihari is essentially Lashkari Khana, K rations equivalent for the Indian soldiers, the Rohillas, who were left behind in the city after the raids of various Afghan leaders. Nadir Shah, Ahmad Shah Abdali, two of his attacks. And these soldiers ate in the bazaar, ate once in a day, a slow cooked, very glutinous, very rich gravy, trotters, pie, a bit of marrow, and for a favored customer, a bit of magas thrown in. So what would happen is that this was cooked overnight and meat was almost mashed like halim. But this was not a Shahi dish at all. It is very amusing when you find Shahi Nihari in a five-star restaurant menu today. This was Lashkari Khana on the streets. So that is what it is. The street food has traveled upwards, And from the king's table, the crumbs have fallen and become aspirational for people, and people have eaten that. There also is a food lore which says that Shah Alam used to get his sweets from Ghantewalas. No, obviously, it was the best sweet shop in town. He by appointment to His Majesty, the last Mughal emperor or thereabouts, he would send the choicest sweets to him. But the point is that if you keep this in mind, you would notice that there was Delhi before Shahjahanabad. And there is that other interesting story, which says after Shah Jahan founded the city, he discovered that the water of Jamuna was polluted. So, following the advice of Shahi Hakim, he added the amount of chilies to the gravies, and then to counterbalance the chilies, he added rogan, more ghee, and this is what explains the story. But I would say that nobody in Delhi, before Shahjahanabad was founded, was drinking the polluted water of Jamuna near the Nigambodh Ghat, the cremation grounds. They were step wells, they were bawdis, Agarsen ki bawdi, Rajao ki Bain, Gandhak ki bawdi. They were wells like Dhola Kuan, which is the white well, or the Lal Kuan. So there was of course the Nehre Bahisht, which Firuz Shah had constructed from Satluj to bring water to Delhi. So let's not talk of these stories which make interesting anecdotage, but they don't really help us understand the food. So I would say that before Shahjahanabad was built, you can count at least 7 or 8 Delhis. You go back to the age of epics, you go to Mahabharat, and the city of Indraprasth has a close connection with Mahabharat. Archaeological excavations have exposed several layers of habitations, and at the site of the Purana Kila. Now, Purana Kila was, as it stands today, was built by Sher Shah Suri, added by Humayun, and Babur, of course, had ran round the ramparts when he attacked the Lodhis in Delhi. But the point is, there was a Delhi before much before the Turko-Afghans came. So if we talk in terms of Mahabharat, the Pandav princes had burnt a forest called Khandaprastha and then set up their capital called Indraprastha here. Now, there is a great demand for political reasons to rename Delhi to Indraprastha. There are parts of Delhi which are called Indraprastha Power Station, Indraprastha Extension Residential Area, Indraprastha College also. But the point to be remembered is that Mahabharata was also an imperial capital. At Mahabharata times, Indraprastha was an imperial capital. And the choices produced from different parts of the country was brought here. Before Khari Bavli was there, is the largest wet market in Asia. Now, most of us read Mahabharata as a blood-soaked fratricidal war fought in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Some say that it was also the location where the great sermon of Gita was delivered by Krishna to Arjun. So it becomes quasi-spiritual, quasi-philosophical, quasi-real-life blood and gore story, fratricidal feud. But we forget the happier occasions in Mahabharata. And these happier occasions are the one which provide an insight into food. There was the coronation first of all, there was the inauguration of the city of Indraprastha, the new Pandava capital, which made Duryodhan very envious. Then we come to the coronation of Yudhishthir. Then we come to the Rajsu Yagya. Then we come to his various celebrations after coming back, coming back from exile and performing a Rajsuya Yagya. And he has 3 kitchens. One kitchen for kings who had accepted his paramountcy as a Chakravarti ruler. Second kitchen for nobles and courtiers and their dependents. And the third kitchen for the sages and saints and the Brahmins, purely Sattvic, who came to bless him. So you have this intermingling of flavors from various, and then this description. We don't have any recipes, but we can reconstruct the stories very interestingly. The king of Pragjyotish, Assam, brought not only bamboo shoots, he also brought some choicest dried fish. He also brought yak tails. You also have the king ruling Kashmir who brought saffron with him and priceless morels. So ingredients are described. And we have a very interesting repertoire which is created out of this. And then, of course, we have other stories in Mahabharata which tell us that 1 year of anonymous exile was spent by Bhim as a cook in in a Virat's court. Now, and also Bhim was supposed to be an expert cook even otherwise. He was a not exactly a gourmet, but a gourmand. But both Bhim and Arjun had, during their days in forest exile, married princesses. And these were tribal princesses, and they had stayed there for a long time. Uh, Arjun had married Chitrangada, Bhim had married Hidimba, and then, of course, they had had children from these princes. It is reasonable to assume that they had acquired a taste during their long forest exile, a taste for the exotic foraged foods. So these also, like fiddlehead ferns, lingna, which is popular in Himachal and Uttarakhand, came to Indraprastha. You also have very interesting details in Mahabharata. There are other stories. It is often said of Mahabharata that what is in Mahabharata, whatever is anywhere in the world is in Mahabharata, and what is not in Mahabharata can't be found anywhere else. So, besides the story of Kauravas and Pandavas, we also have the story of an earlier period in Satyug, not in Dwapar when this was fought. We have a story of Raja Nal, and the Nal was a great cook. Nal was a genius. He was a polymath. He could drive his chariot more expertly than any professional chariot driver, and he could, in the motion, count the leaves of a tree rustled by the wind. This might be an exaggeration, but he also is associated with a style of cooking called Nalapak. Now, Nalapak was cooking food without direct application of heat, which means that you use solar heat to cook your food properly, like the shikanji is prepared. Now, everybody knows of solar cookers these days, but Nal was also given, his name is also associated with a book called Nalapaka Darpanam, which gives various recipes. Now, obviously, this Nalpak Darpanam was compiled much after the Mahabharata and Ramayana were compiled in between 4th century BC to 4th century ED. But you have references to ingredients, you have references to dishes, no recipes, no measures, no method, but you can do a lot of reverse engineering and see whether the result is pleasant to the palate or not. You go back to a period even earlier than the Dwapar, which is the Ramayana period. And the Ramayana story is there also in Mahabharata. Not in great detail, but it does gives you the kernel, like Ram and Sita going to the forest. So there is this similarity. Both princes, Kshatriya princes, group of Kshatriya princes go to the forest. They kill demons. They have various struggles. They eat differently. So though Ram and Sita and Lakshman go dressed as hermits to the forest, but they have a taste in their DNA of flesh eating. So there is that killing of the treacherous golden deer, which was brought to for Sita, but which was a Gandharva, cursed Gandharva masquerading as a heron, and then Sita was kidnapped. To cut a long story short, you have the Ram and Lakshman and Sita going to the ashrams of the various sages. And the sages obviously were not going to cook flesh for them, the royal princes. So how do they become hospitable for them? They give them the kanda moola phala, the roots, the shoots, and the fruits. Now, obviously, they were not eaten raw. They were dressed up a little. It was like a beautiful salad made out of yams, slightly roasted, dressed with honey, and some fragrant herbs went into that. If ghee was not there, sesame seeds were done. And then again, you have other story in Mahabharata, which is the Shakuntala story, which Kalidas has developed brilliantly into Abhigyana Shakuntalam. So Kanva Rishi's ashram is where Shakuntala was brought up. And Kanva Rishi treated her like his daughter. But then he was eating a certain kind of sattvic food. And when Dushyanta comes to the ashram on a hunt, royal hunt, of course, he has smells, and the smells allure him that they are of the ghee being put in the fire, there's the sesame seeds being fried, and we have these references to almost Vedic times. And if you go, I mean, let's not get into the controversy whether the Aryans were the indigenous people or they were early Indians or they had come from Central Asia, but the Vedas were also envisioned by the seers in the area which is Punjab, Kurukshetra, and the Delhi. And that is where the great Indus civilization flourished once. Now, if we talk of Indus Valley civilization, the second interesting thing about Delhi needs to be clarified. Delhi food is also supposed to be tandoori food, tandoori chicken, butter chicken which comes out of a tandoori chicken. But Did the tandoors come to India or Delhi only after the partition? The excavations in Indus Valley civilization have shown conclusively that there were clay ovens being used in the whole area from Mohenjo-daro, Harappa to Lothal to South Gujarat and Kalibangan. And it is not far-fetched to suggest that a chicken would not have jumped on its own in a clay oven, but somebody put it there, and the bones dressed for eating have been found in Harappa. I'm not trying to promote meat eating from Indus civilization to present day. I'm only suggesting that the food in Delhi probably was not as brought by post-partition Punjabis, but the borders of Delhi touched Punjab and Haryana until Haryana was carved out of Punjab. There was a Punjab High Court which adjudicated cases in Delhi. There was a Punjab University where the colleges in Delhi were affiliated. So the food in Delhi pre-partition also had a strong Punjabi imprint, which covered the undivided India from Darya Khyber to jungles of Arakan, from the sub-Himalayan region in Pir Panjal to Sri Lanka. This was what the domain of a Chakravarti used to be. So you have a very interesting thing that tandoor existed before. Old Delhi came up, Shahjahanabad came up, and Mughaliya food, the myth we have tried to explain that Babur didn't have much time to develop food. Humayun was chased out of Delhi by Sher Shah Suri. Akbar shifted his capital at the age of 13, 14 to the Delhi was in Nishad kingdom. Somebody is asking, and I can't get help answering. Nal was the ruler of the Nishads. He was not in Mahabharat times at all. In Indraprastha, his story is an earlier aeon of age altogether. That's what I tried to say, that Mahabharata talks of days and places and kings other than the Pandavas and Kauravas. So Indraprastha was not even a twinkle in the eyes of the architect Mayrat from Meerut. Nal we are talking about in Satyug. Ram and Lakshman are Treta Yug, the second age. Dwapar, when Krishna was advising the Pandavas and Kauravas and Gita's Updesh, is Dwapar. And we are living in the age of darkness, the Kalki. But now that we are in Dwapar, we might as well think in terms of some more interesting things. Jamuna was a very interesting passage which could be navigated by boats between Agra, Mathura, and Delhi. So Krishna came often enough to advise his cousins and his favorites in Indraprastha. But what do we know of the food in Mathura? Till this date, Mathura is dairy country, milk country. Mathura ka peda, doodh ghee, makhan mishri, dahi, mishri, etc. And Krishna is called the Gopal, the cowherd, or the Govind who looks after that. So all the sweets which we now associate with Delhi probably slowly evolved over a period of time because of its contact with the Braj Bhumi. And the best halwais in Delhi, for that matter in Banaras and Lucknow, continue to be the Yadavs who have mastered the skills of slowly condensing milk on very low heat and making pedas out of it, making kulfis out of it, making rabdis out of it, making kurchans out of it. But as long as we are at it, one more thing from the days of Mahabharat we must talk about. This is the extent of there is another very interesting story, the extent of the empire or the crucial heartland of the empire. The Krishna once went to the Kaurav court, was sent to the Kaurav court to negotiate peace. And what did Krishna say? Krishna said, you can have peace if you give us 5 villages. And what were these 5 villages? Indraprasth was there, Bagpat, which is Vyagprasth, was there, Sonprasth was there, Sonipat, Panipat was there, and Tilprasth, where air exercises take place these days, well within the territory of Delhi, was there. Now, Duryodhan said, I will not only not give you these 5 villages, I will not give you land which can be measured by a tip of a needle. Why did he say so? He said so because these 5 villages control the ingress and outgress of the Jamuna water from Delhi. So whoever controls these 5 points has a stranglehold on the ruler of Delhi. So today also, you see, if the farmers move from Punjab to Haryana to Delhi, the Delhi government says, why should Haryana stop them coming? Same thing applies to UP. If the farmers come from UP to Delhi and their marches stop, Delhi is into some kind of a choke. Now, if you see the NCR today, if you want to eat the best parathas, it would be a very naive person who would end up in the tourist trap of Chandni Chowk and the Parathe Wali Gali, where you can have a rabdi ka paratha, papad ka paratha, nibu ka paratha, mawe ka paratha, mewe ka paratha, tomato ka paratha, and so on. These parathas are not classic parathas, the layered bread, flat bread, which is baked on a tawa. They are shallow fried, a cross hybrid between a puri and a paratha, proper paratha. And of course, lots of people's photographs are displayed there, from chief ministers to prime ministers to visiting dignitaries to actors to sports person. But if you really want to eat a good paratha, you would head straight for Murthal. You will go to Murthal and eat a tandoori paratha maybe, which is closer to a kulcha. You will have a stuffed paratha. You will have it with white butter. You will have it with a glass of lassi. And that paratha, for my money or for anybody's money, is the real paratha. So talk of Panipat. Talk of pickles, etc. You don't have to go to Khari Bavli. Panipat has the Pachranga pickle and its imitators, which was the business was set up by a Punjabi refugee post-partition, but that is where the pickles are. So the point is that the flavors of Delhi in NCR, if you go towards Faridabad, you are very close to Palwal and Mathura. And you travel from Gurgaon, which is Gurugram, associated with Dronacharya, the royal tutor of the Pandav and Kaurav princes, partial to Kshatriya princes, got the thumb of Eklavya. We'll not get into that story. But the dairy and the sweets date back to again the same period. So the point is that the western UP is the granary of Uttar Pradesh. And what do they eat? They eat gehu, they eat urad ki dal, they eat chana, they eat shak. Now, the all that is very much part of the exact overlap of the Mahabharat map and the 5 villages, the 5 paths, and of course the present day NCR. The other interesting thing is that when Shah Jahanabad was set up, much is made that Shah Jahan invited Kashmiris, he invited Punjabi Saudagarans, he invited Banyas, Kayas, etc. But is that not true that there were people in Akbar's court who were Kayas, who were Banyas, who were people like among his 9 jewels, you could count Turko Afghans like Abul Fazl and Faizi, you could have Baj Bahadur from Mandu, and also the stray Kashmiri who came to this place, because Kashmir was a favorite of Jahangir, Noor Jahan, Darashikoh, and there is an old Mughal road which takes them to Lahore. But the connection was then Lahore, the old Mughal route through Murree to Srinagar Valley, not through Delhi at all, not Delhi Amritsar route. But then the shawls of Amritsar date back to, and the Marwadi traders, some dates of founding of the Golden Temple, and the Marwadi traders visiting from Rajasthan to this place to buy shawls from Kashmir, saffron from Kashmir, and bring them down elsewhere. So I would say that even before Shah Jahanabad was built, Delhi had a connection with Kashmir. In the days of Jahangir, most certainly, and the Persian influence on Kashmiri Vajwan, which dates, after all, Kashmir was called Iran Sagir. And they speak Persian fluently. पढ़े लिखे को फारसी क्या तो कश्मीरियों पे लागू होता है. And the carpet weaving and all the interesting things which we treat as Kashmiri Wazwan or Shabdir date back to a period, to my mind, before Shah Jahanabad was built. We only have to take care of this, that we don't give, I mean, Mughals are not in any case the flavor of the month, but it is at the same time we should realize that there were other influences coming to the Mughal court. There were foreign travelers. There was Bernier who had come at the time of Jahangir and Shah Jahan. The royal embassy from Queen Elizabeth sent by Roe and Terry had come to Delhi before that. They had been hosted by Abul Fazl, Faizi and the relatives of Jahangir. So the food in Delhi had imbibed a lot of influences, not necessarily post Shah Jahanabad. You also have interesting things about Delhi's food. You have control of the black market. You have the area of the Haus Khas, which of course for a short while was a shining moment, the best eating food street in town. Now it has moved elsewhere, of course, from Shaheen Bagh to Batala House to Cyber Hubs to 32nd Milestone, etc. But then what had happened was in Haus Khas, there is a place called Chor Minar, where Alauddin Khilji, who was a very stern autocrat, who was remembered for wrong reasons with his fondness for Malik Kafur or for his attacks and sacking of Chittorgarh because he coveted Padmini, that might be a different apocryphal story. But the point is that he tried to control the prices in Delhi, and black marketeers were their heads were chopped off their head and hung on the Chor Minar. And he controlled prices very effectively. He also constructed Haus Shamsi, and the whole Haus Khas complex came there, which also houses the tomb of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. And Firoz Shah Tughlaq had enjoyed a short reign of prosperity. He did not have to build walls around his city, Firozabad, which is Firoz Shah Tughlaq, the creating ground and thereabouts area, to protect it. He brought an Ashokan pillar and erected it here. You can see it driving out on the outer ring road even today. So I would say that the old cities of Delhi uh, testify to the fact that each, except perhaps the Lodhis, who did not get enough time, did not have enough interest, they considered discretion the better part of valor and moved out from Delhi towards Agra the moment they had to face the heat of Babur. But they were not spared there, they were defeated, and ultimately this whole land was ceded to them. So you have that part. The other part which I wish the listeners to keep in mind is that there is a lot of Awadh ka khana, Lucknowi khana and Hyderabadi khana in Delhi post uh, Bahadur Shah, or not post Bahadur Shah 1 and between Bahadur Shah 2nd. Because Shah Alam and Akbar Shah, when they were chased out of Delhi, took refuge in Faizabad, took refuge in Allahabad, stayed there for years, and were brought back under the protection of the Marathas to be put on the throne to become their puppets first and then British puppets. But these people had acquired a taste for Avdi Nazakat ka khana. And although the Subidar, the Nawabs of Awadh, at one time were feudatories of the Mughal emperor in Delhi, and then these people, when they came, they brought their cooks with them also. And there has been a very interesting journey. I mean, when Bahadur Shah Zafar was petitioning the British for his pension, increase in pension, and Metcalfe was treating him roughly, he would send people as his vakils from Delhi via Lucknow and Bareilly, Lucknow, Banaras to Calcutta, onwards to London to plead his case. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one such person. Ghalib himself undertook the journey to Calcutta several times, never could go beyond that, was not successful chasing his pension. Uh, but the thing to be remembered is that there is a very interesting travelogue by a gentleman called Anand Muflis. Anand Ram Muflis was a Hindu caste who was a food lover and was there traveled in Delhi in times of Muhammad Shah Rangila, the merry king. And he describes, no, Rangila was a fantastic person. He loved music, he loved dance, he dressed up in women's clothes. He also went out on hunts. He was entertained in his bedchamber by conjurers, acrobats, etc. But one trip which he took to Garmukteshwar to discipline one of the jamidars there describes a hunt where he says that they had an Indian bustard maybe, they had a turkey maybe, they had partridges, and they had a whole leg of ran cooked dampukht, and again no recipes, but the descriptions of the dishes leave you in no doubt that what was called dampukht was a special style which had been brought to the court in Delhi by Bawarchis of Awadh, by who accompanied the princes who had been there earlier. So you have again the whatever is the account of Anand Ram Muflis is corroborated, or the other way around is the Murakkai Delhi, the portraits of Delhi done by an official chronicler who had accompanied the Nizam of Hyderabad, who had stayed in Delhi for 3 years. And of course, those were the days not of air travel, not of Durantos, not of Vande Bharat trains. So if you traveled for 2, 3 months, then you stayed in a place for a year, year and a half, then went back and took the same time. And his presence in Delhi lent some gravitas to a court which was left to merrymaking and had been devastated time and again by Nadir Shah's attacks, Abdali's attacks, and so on. So you have this interesting anecdotage and documentation of food in Delhi, which had a strong Avdi influence, and also the influence of Rampur. Although the Riyasat of Rampur came much later, but Rampur was also on way Garmukteshwar, Rampur, Bareilly onwards to Lucknow, Banaras, Prayag, Banaras, Calcutta. You have the influence of Rampur food in Delhi, and I'm very indebted to my friend Osama bin Jalali, whose father did the Dastarbandi of the Imam Sahib in the Fez Mosque. And the interesting part is this, that some khana for Rampur also became part of the Delhi repertoire. So you have this interesting thing. And of course, let's not forget the great Sikh lineage. I mean, even the places like Tisazari testify to the days when 30,000 Sikh soldiers under Commander Bandha Singh were placed in Delhi to ostensibly to protect the emperor, but to extract protection money from him, and they practically ruled for a short while. So there were the great Sikh gurus which had martyred themselves fighting for the Qaum and protecting the Hindus. Qaum should not be confused with only the Sikh Qaum. Guru Tegh Bahadur told his followers to say, spread like a chadar and save the Hindus and Muslims together. So the persecution of an autocratic, whimsical, tyrannical, debauched ruler was what they were fighting against, or they were fighting against the oppression of, because they were seen as a challenge to the sovereignty of Mughal emperor. So you have they had two swords, Piri and Miri, and some of them, like Guru Gobind Singh Ji, lived like princes. They lived like princes in Palampur. They lived like in princes like Renuka, near Renuka Sarovar, and near Paonta Sahib for 4 years. That's the longest a Sikh Guru stayed permanently in a particular place. So you have this gurus and gurdwaras and langars at times of pestilence, at times of famines, at times of political turmoil, and you have the Guru Ka Langar in the best tradition of the Sufi langars of the Sufi saints, open to anybody, regardless of caste, creed, etc. So I would say that Delhi's food has also been enriched by the tradition of Sufi langars and Sikh langars in the Gurdwaras. So let's not forget that these were pre-Shah Jahanabad days. Let's not also forget the inputs by Christians, Anglo-Indians, and so on. There were what William Dalrymple calls the white Mughals. There were many Englishmen, Scotsmen, who married local women. They were away with men without women. They were away from home, and then they begot progeny from these. So the most interesting case is of General Octor Looney. Octor Looney, who was called Akhtar Looney, he had 14 begums, some Hindus, some Muslims, and he had children, some Hindus, some Muslims, some Christians, and they went around him on a promenade in an evening and on elephants along under the shadow of the ramparts of Red Fort. His Begum wanted to be called first lady of the empire, but of course the poor woman, before she married Octor Looney, was a lady of easy virtue, so she was called she was called with the derogatory term Randi. And then of course, let's forget about the poor woman, but Octor Looney has obviously Indianized, gone local, non native. He dressed up in Indian attire, he smoked hookah, and another such interesting person was Fraser, who again is described, who was murdered in Delhi just before the mutiny. But he again had Indian wives, Indian children. He respected the halal haram concept for both Hindus and Muslims and entertained them at home and dressed up like an Indian. He was supposedly an eccentric. His family thought that he had gone native totally. So, and of course, there was Skinner, who was left behind the legacy of the great Skinner's church in Kashmiri Gate, who was called nigger by those who considered himself half-breed and who took pride in their racial purity, the real English Scotsman or the Englishman or the Irishman. He had a big estate in Hasi in near Gurgaon. He also was a moneyed man and tried to live like an Englishman. He changed sides. First, he fought with the Marathas, then gave it up, betrayed the Marathas, then went to the side of the East India Company. You had the great woman of this period, Begum Samru, who was born in Kashmir, was brought in a poor family, was earning her living as a dancing girl, training to be a dancing girl till the age of 14 and 15, was brought to Delhi. Luck brought her in contact with a French soldier of fortune, Le Sombre, and that became abbreviated as Samru, and she had a Jagir near Sardana, but she also owned a fabulous house where she entertained in great style in Delhi, which is the place called Bhagirath Place today, was the Raja Bhannamal's Haveli at one stage. Before that, it was Begum Sabru's uh, salon. So you have descriptions of these people who entertained in the style of Europeans, and they tried to curry favor with European guests, whether it was General Lake, whether it was the resident, whether it was the agent general, and they treated themselves as nobility. Obviously, after the British had controlled the Mughals totally, they had to accept a subservient role, but some of them kept, like Begum Sabru, their chin up there, and there are ample descriptions of this. These foods came to Delhi. So Bernier, who traveled to India during Shah Jahan's time, has certain derogatory remarks about the bakeries. They were dirty, they were fly infested. But the art of baking had come to Delhi with these Christians, these Anglo Indians, much before the British declared it a capital. So you have the first church, which was in St. Stephen's church in the locality of nearby, in the vicinity of Jama Masjid. Then we have talked of James Skinner's church. You have the Jesuits who had been given some land for church and their mission way back in Jahangir's time. There is an interaction in the Ibadat Khana, not in Delhi, but in Fatehpur Sikri of Akbar with priests, Jesuit priests, and so on. Uh, so we have a very interesting Christian Anglo-Indian food connection in Delhi as well. The interesting thing, the most interesting thing to my mind is that we talk of thousands years of evolution of food in Delhi, but actually you can't authenticate the food in Delhi for thousands of years. What we can document through archives, through personal memoirs, cross-check the sources, historical documents is the past 175 years, outer limit 200 years. People, of course, would talk of Ibn Battuta and Muhammad Tughlaq, Al-Baruni and his Kitabul Hind, but they are descriptions of food at the imperial spread by a foreign traveler who, for all practical purposes, was a hagiographer kept captive. So we have dishes like sambosak, we have naan, we have sharbat-e-labgir. Similarly, in Akbarnama, we have samosa again, we have khichdi, we have kashti. We can make out from the description what the dish was probably, but there are no recipes. So we only go into the authentication of recipes and food when we have 3, 4 sources to combine. So when the railways came to India post mutiny, 1868, the railway line were laid by labor, practically bonded labor brought from other parts of the British Empire. So Rajasthanis came, the Bengalis came, the Biharis came. Bengalis did not come as labor. They came as accountants, clerks, overseers, job in charge, and so on. But the laborer came from Rajasthan. They came from famine-struck areas of Bihar, from Orissa, and these influences came. So we have this input coming not from the royal spread, but from the street. You have sattu. Now you have now it's very fashionable to have sattu ka sharbat even in upper middle class houses or even in starred luxury hotels. But then these are the people who brought it with them. Now, when we come to this portion, it becomes more interesting because then when the capital is shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, when it had not shifted to Delhi, it still moved for summer to Shimla. So it bypassed Delhi, but had a long journey, month-long journey to reach Shimla. But when the railways came, it was more convenient to break journey in Delhi and then move over to by train to Kalka. But when the capital was formally shifted, there was a large migration pre-partition from Bengal who came as clerks, teachers, advocates, doctors, and doctors, not only allopathic doctors, even homeopathic doctors. There's an interesting case of one Dr. Sen in whose house Swami Vivekananda had stayed in a short visit to Delhi. And when he died, this Dr. Sen, Chandni Chowk remained closed for 2 days. He was such a popular doctor, a homeopath. You again have lawyers, doctors, engineers, the Kalibadis, the small precincts where they came. You have their favorite sweet shops, like the first branch of Annapurna. in near Pavara. The story as it goes that there was a man working for railways who lost his leg in an accident. He could not be employed in the railways, so he set up a railway compartment look-alike restaurant where he served Bengali food. Now, of course, many generations down, it is still the best sweet shop in branches, whether it is in Green Park, whether it is in Chittaranjan Park, whether it is the old prison site. So you have these interesting stories about the Bengali food coming to Delhi. You have the Madrasi food coming to Delhi. And Madrasi is a catch all phrase, you know. When you talked of Madrasi, you mean a Malayali, a Andhra, a Telugu, put together, and a Tamil put together, all four. But that is not wrong. Right now, calling somebody a Madrasi would expose you as a North Indian barbarian. But the point is, when we are talking of the period when Madras presidency included large chunks of Andhra, some parts of Karnataka, northern Kerala, and of course, present day Tamil Nadu. So when the states had not been reorganized linguistically, there was a Madras presidency. There was a Bombay presidency. Now, similarly, there was this joke that whenever you have to do some work done in a government office, you have to first negotiate a chaprasi at the doorstep, the dwarpal, the gatekeeper, then the madrasi, who is a very straight, honest clerk or a supervisor who will let you on to the Bada Sahab, the Gora Sahab, who may ultimately decide what you want to be done. Uh, you have this fascinating influx of Parsis. Again, the lawyers, the businessmen, the bankers, the engineers, the shofs, who played a very important role in New Delhi Municipal Corporation as well. And you have the people, the Kayas and the Baniyas, who came during this period in search of better jobs from other parts of the country. So you have this period when you have Anglo-Indians, Christians, Parsis, Gujaratis, Madrasis, Bengalis, Odiyas, Rajasthanis, and to my mind, all these are the sedimented rock-like formations of food in Delhi. And the Delhi belly really comprises these multiple uh, immigrants' tastes, cooking techniques, foods. Take the latest example of momos. Now, momo has displaced the kebab from the Delhi's food scene. The momos was the poor man's snack finger food in northeast Nepal. People would associate with Tibet, whether it's Nepal or Tibet, Tibet or Nepal. It came to India through northeastern people. Now, this is the staple now. You have a tandoori momo, you have a fried momo, you have momo with hollandaise sauce, you have a momo filled with even chocolate, you have momo filled with chow mein. So you have an interesting evolution of the food itself, of one specific delicacy, if you call it a delicacy, and connoisseurship of what you should eat. Mm, should you eat a momo with a pesto? Should there be a baked momo? Should there is momo a cruder form of dim sum or suimai, or is it a jar in its own? So you have these things about Delhi. I think, and the point is that somebody is asking about Marathas rule Delhi. Now, you see, look, the Marathas did not actually rule Delhi. Marathas controlled Delhi. Marathas controlled Delhi under Mahaji Sindhia, who was protecting the British Emperor. They never actually claimed sovereign ruler status in Delhi, nor did the Bharatpur Jats. The Sikhs, for a temporary period, flew the flag on the Red Fort but did not claim it. They were also protectors. So when we are talking, the Maratha food did not come directly to Delhi. It came differently. It came because the Maratha Confederacy, when it broke, the Sindhyas in Gwalior were Maratha, Holkars in Indore were Maratha, Bhonsles in Nagpur were Maratha, mm, Gaikwads in Barodas were Maratha. Now, the closest were the Sindhyas, and the Sindhyas did have military influence till General Lake defeated them. And after that, they ceased to be there. They were protectors of the Mughal emperors in a period of great turmoil. But their food did not come directly to India that way at all. So they have not left a Maratha food imprint on the food in the city of Delhi. Now, of course, each state has a bhavan. Each state serves a Gujarati thali, a Marathi thali, Sindhi thali, and a Goan thali, and a Kerala thali, and a Kashmiri Wazwan thali. And but uh, that is confined to the state's having their resident commissioners and trying to keep the flag flying in Delhi and promote tourism to their states, handicrafts of their states, and so on. So the Maharashtra Bhavan is also there. It holds regular food festivals and so on. But I don't think that one can trace a straight Maratha influence of the food of Delhi that way. And the process continues. The process continues in the sense that if you talk of the close of the, what shall we say, the first quarter of the 21st century, we have Delhi like a Delhi platter is like a oyster, like that. You have the Japanese food here, you have the Korean food here, you have Italian food here, you have Lebanese food here, you have the Turkish food here, you have even Brazilian food here, you have Indonesian food here, you have, well, uh, even uh, French food of different provinces here, you have Spanish food here, and there is also Greek food here. You could even look for some African food, Ethiopian or the Creole food. You have. So Delhi has not stopped evolving in terms of food. And I would be happy to answer questions as they come up, but I think the process will continue. And there's fusion food, there's avant-garde Indian food. But as the famous poem by Eliot says, we end up at the place after traveling where it is. So what happens is the last chapter of the book is called Past as Future as Past. So when you have a puff pastry filled with butter chicken masala, it tells you that the taste in the DNA of a Delhi wala will remain unchanged. He may experiment with the container, envelope, but ultimately he will go back to a tangri kebab, a tandoori kebab. Uh, he would have a vegetarian sushi. He will have a navratra pizza. You have a aloo tikki burger. You have more tikka masala sandwiches. So that's what, or you will have eggless sandwiches and pastries. So the process continues.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful to talk about so many different kinds of food and a long period of history over which we've seen the historical influences on food and vice versa. Very, very enlightening. Thank you. I will run through some of the questions that, you were so good. You answered so many questions along the way, but I'll run through some more. I think Yogesh mentioned first that he enjoyed your shows on the Epic channel. He is very happy to see you. I think that you also answered about the Bhim and Nala. Where in Delhi was Nala's kingdom and also the Kanva Muni?
Nala's kingdom was not in Delhi. That's what I was trying to
That's
say.
what you were trying to say, right?
Mahabharata has stories other than and geographies other than Mahabharata.
Right.
For instance, the cook who was cooking at the battlefield of Kurukshetra was the king of Udupi. Now, Udupi is not in Delhi. Udupi is
Correct.
in Karnataka. So he was the neutral person. So he was cooking both for the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The Nala story goes back to an age earlier. So that
Earlier
was not
age.
Delhi then. Nala is the king, considered to be a king of Nishadas. And the
Right.
Nishad kingdom is somewhere towards when Ram goes in Treta Yuga towards that, towards Banaras and beyond Chitrakoot. You cross the river on a boat, and those are the Nishads and the Mallahs.
Jyoti again wants to know that there was dry fish from the east, you said, and she wasn't sure that people in the Mahabharata times had fish, but I'm guessing that.
No, I'm afraid that is carrying things a bit too far because if they had beef, I'm not promoting beef eating in the Vedic times, which is pretty well documented, and if there are fish bones discovered in pre-Mahabharata times, there is a river flowing through Delhi, and people don't eat fish doesn't make sense to me at all. And Brahmins may avoid fish. Some Brahmins eat fish, like the Mathils or the Bengali Brahmins or even the Oriya Brahmins, even the Kashmiri Brahmins, even the Gaur Saraswat Brahmins. It doesn't make sense to me that who can say authoritatively that people in Mahabharata did not eat fish. What I was trying to say is that both Arjun and Bhim had married tribal princes in Northeast. Now in Northeast, there's zakuni, the fermented bean paste, and a fermented fish paste. Now, it is more logical for me to argue that Arjun acquired a taste for fermented fish in Manipur, and brought it here. It doesn't perish. It is only a flavoring agent. Whether you had a mahi musallam or not, or whether you have paturi or not, it doesn't make sense to me. But if people in Kashmir can eat fish, people can Amritsar can from Haripatan can eat Amritsari machi, when Sindhis can eat fish and lobster, and Sindh is very much part of the Mahabharata story.
Right.
I don't think that I would not concede the point that people in Mahabharata either did not know fish or did not eat fish. It seems to me to be a very fishy story.
Idris asked about the Kashmiri Wazwan influence and vice versa, which you did address. And he
No,
also,
I think one thing I must mention that the Kashmiri was the one which registered its greatest presence was Shabdeg. And Shabdeg, people fight over it, whether it's Kashmiri or Kayast or Delhi, its own. It's certainly Kashmiri, and the use of saffron in delectable biryanis and pulavs is an influence of Kashmir. But the Kashmiris eat a lot more dumba, lamb, with lot more fat, which is very appropriate for their climate, but in Delhi is not probably there. So we have uh, people would even stop short of indulging in kabarga or tabak the same thing, spare ribs, very fatty, boiled in aromatic cardamom milk and then fried, deep fried. Uh, Rishta and Gushtaba are nothing else but pounded meat and fat. Uh, but there are things which people incorporated, like the aloo bukhara korma. But Rogan Josh, of course, Rogan Josh is part of the Kashmiri heritage. But then it became Punjabi-fied. The pure Kashmiri Rogan Josh in the Pandit Vazwan, it does not have any pyaz or lesson. It is hing and saunf and salt and lal mirch and masala, aromatic word masala. But Punjabi Rogan Josh has tomatoes and pyaz and so on. So that's how the food changes. Like samosa changed, Rogan Josh also changed.
Idris also mentions that Muhammad bin Tughlaq had a great role in obviously expanding pomegranate and grapes, like many other Mughal emperors brought lots of
Well, see,
riches.
we think that the Mughals only had fruits and nobody else had. But in his Nama says that the Indian mango is pretty neat, is the sweetest flavor I have ever tasted. He missed his melons and watermelons. And even if you see the story, the best fruit, of course, the apricot and the plums and the prunes came from Central Asia, but not necessarily with the Mughals after Shah Jahanabad. Even before that, Babur is pre-Shah Jahanabad, Akbar is pre-Shah Jahanabad, Jahangir is pre-Shah Jahanabad. So I would say that maybe one could argue this, that Mughals popularized, but there is descriptions of orchards of Indian fruits, especially mangoes and lychees, which of course lychees were not brought by the Mongols; they were brought by the Chinese travelers, perhaps. There's a few stones. So you had grapes before. You have references to grape in Panchatantra and Hitopdesh, which are the progenitors of the Aesop's fables, certainly pre-Mughal.
Hmm.
I don't. Bananas are there before that, which were relished. Berries of all kinds were relished.
Jyoti wants to know if you can mention some foods that each Yug ate, like Satyug and then Nala and Ramayana and Mahabharata and Krishna. I know that
I would not
many
hazard
foods.
I would not hazard it, because even this chronology is very arbitrary. You say that Brahma ka ek din mein kitne manvantar ka hota tha. There were thousands of years of our Kali Yuga days which comprise one day there. And then you said that what they ate, they were people who lived up to thousands of years and they had the purest food. So we don't have the purity index, we don't have the knowledge of all the ingredients. We have references to what they eat from Vedic day onwards. And the Vedic period is not certainly Satyug. And Vedas are revealed knowledge. So Vedas talk of Godhuma, which is wheat. They talk of Chanak, which is chickpeas. They talk of Shak, which is green leafy vegetables. They talk of Mash, which is the black moong. We continue to eat them till this date. They talk of sesame seeds. They talk of honey. So I don't think that you can go back earlier. You can go back even to Bhimbetka stone paintings and say 25,000 years before the birth of Christ. The wall paintings show us a hunt. They show us the dinosaurs spoiling of honeycombs, crocodiles, elephants, pigs. They were hunted and eaten. But that again is not Satyug. So Satyug and Treta Yug and Dwapar Yug. So some people would insist that on historically dating the Mahabharata. Bal Gangadhar Tilak did it with astronomical evidence, but there is no general agreement on that. So I would not hazard a guess about what specific food was eaten in Satyug or Treta Yug or even in Dwapar. Dwapar, one can have more, shall we say, rational references.
Idris also wants to know about the influence of Afghans on the tandoori naan, bread, or roti.
No, Afghan influence is very, very strong. But let's not forget that Afghanistan was not a foreign land for India. There was a Hindu kingdom, the Shahis, who ruled there. And before the Taliban blew the massive Bamiyan Buddhas to smithereens, there was a strong Buddhist influence there. There was a trade through a difficult passage through the Khyber. But the Kabuli Walas came before Tagore wrote his story to India for generations immemorial. And the Turco-Afghan, the word itself means that the Afghans came from Afghanistan and the Mughals came through Fargana to Uzbekistan to through Afghanistan. And Babur's tomb is continues to be in Kabul, and the river Kabul joins a river which is a tributary of Sindh. So we call Punjab the river of five rivers, but when we talk in terms of the land of seven rivers, it has to include the river Kabul coming and joining in undivided India's territory, one of the tributaries of Indus. So Afghanistan was not an alien land for us. So whether it is a barra kebab, whether it is a rosh, whether it is the naan, it is part of the same heritage.
Um, Sharad wants to know something about the Daulat ki chaat of Delhi and the Khubani ka meetha of Hyderabad and also Kashmiri Wazwan, which
Well,
you
you see, Khubani ka meetha is a bit stretch from Delhi. It is very much a Hyderabadi dish,
Hyderabadi
which
dish.
is a stew of dried sweet apricots and then stoned and stone broken and the almonds put in the Khubani ka meetha and a thick cloyingly sweet stew, which is softened by clotted cream on top. It is not a Delhi thing at all. But Daulat ki chaat is more interesting. It is called Nimish in Lucknow. Nimish is 1/8 of a blink of an eye. The foam settles down in 1/8 of a blink of an eye. That's why it's called Nimish. And it's called Makhan Malai elsewhere. It's called Malayo in Banaras. In Delhi, it's called Daulat Ki Chaat. So somebody would say it is called Daulat Ki Chaat because only the rich men could afford to eat it. Somebody would say there's a Halwai who was called Daulat who created this. But it's again like who's the creator of, it's more logical to believe that the delicate Nawabs of Delhi greatly enjoyed milky froth, which was condensed in winter and then just sprinkled with a little cardamom laced with saffron and relished it very much. I think Daulat Ki Chaat is now available round the year, which is made with cream of tartar. So I don't think it's the real thing at all.
Jyoti says that Maratha food and Peshwa food is not explored much, but
No, I agree with her entirely. But not in the context of Delhi. How do you bring a Peshwa into Delhi other than Mahaji Sindhia and say that, look, this food was brought with him and eaten by him? So, you can I think the Peshwa food is, see, Peshwa food again is interesting. Peshwas were Brahmins, and some of them had no compunctions about eating meat. But when we talk of Maratha food, it is post Peshwa food. It is the food of the Kolhapur people, the rasas, the tam rasa, the pyola rasa, the white rasa, and the kekla curry, with the Maratha soldiers which had gone to Lahore had brought back these flavors with them. So they had the masalas, the special masalas. And I think it deserves to be showcased better. My good friend Adit Mehendale has written a brilliant book on the royal gems of Maharashtrian food, all non-vegetarian, which has some of this. But it can only be showcased in the context of Delhi in a food festival or a pop-up. Because there is no Maratha, I mean, even the, what is it called, Bada Hindu Rao has been converted into a hospital. Before
right.
that, it was a Fraser's Koti. So
Yes.
I wish somebody had a sense of heritage and developed it as a seat of Maratha culture and power and showcased um, handicrafts and dresses and so on.
Harshit Bharadwaj says, what is the food mentioned in the mythological texts that stay in your mind? And then he has another question saying, being a foodie, what are the top two, three street food places in Delhi where we might bump into you?
Not very likely that you'll bump into me on a street corners in Delhi because at my age, traveling to odd places is very inconvenient. And then I think the much made out street foods have become fakes now. So you have pani ka puchka, which is made with Bisleri water, and the person has a glove in his hand, and at times you put something 470 volt ka jhatka, 440 volt ka jhatka in it, fruit juice, and the real jaljeera or the chickpeas goes for a 6. It's like the aloo ki tikki, which is not grilled, pan grilled, but is shallow fried, and it is murdered, slaughtered with salt ki chutney, hari chutney, lal chutney, and dahi and some churbara put on top. So I think it's the way of killing the chaat. And you start making even aloo ki chaat with boiled potatoes, which is absurd. But you know, if you really want to eat, I still think the safe bet is a sanitized food mart where you go to a place like Haldiram, you go to Kalewa, you go to Bikaner Wala, who have a reputation to maintain. Or you go to a smaller town and have a good samosa, good chaat. Uh, you probably would find me in a street corner now that I stay in Gurgaon in Sector 23, a market. Gona walon ka jalebi ki dukaan, samosa ki dukaan. You might bump into me into a Haldiram outlet, a Bikaner Wala outlet, where, the point, they think that they are mechanized. But you have no such qualms about going to a MacD or a Burger King or KFC, where you think, this is the authentic American street food, finger food, or Domino's. But when it comes to semi-mechanized, mass-produced, standardized, hygienically produced Indian street food, you say, ये तो असली चीज नहीं है, वो गंदी चाट होनी चाहिए, where the chaat wala should be scratching himself in unmentionable places, adding to the taste. गंदे नाले के पास दुकान होनी चाहिए. I don't buy that at all.
Okay. Swar says that, sir, your go
Somebody
ahead.
asked about pickles. I think you
Yes.
have to get good choice pickles. I think Handaran Gopinath and Khari Bavli is very, very good. You have a good range of pickles there, but they again are living on a past reputation, because what people like to eat is what present generation has grown up on. Pancharanga in the Pancharanga from Panipat, there are several contenders and imitators, but if you manage to get the original Pancharanga, it is pretty interesting. It's a healthy, wholesome Punjabi शलगम गोभी का अचार और मशरूम का अचार और आम का pickle or कागजी नींबू का pickle. I think it's
And Swar wants to know, he says that you're from Kumaon, and so can you please share the best places to have Pahadi food in Delhi?
man.
And
Because Pahadi food is the flavor of the season. So everybody gives you stinging Himalayan nettle sabzi, shishone ka, bichu buti ka saag. Everybody gives you a bhang ki chutney, which is not toxic, but the name sounds very interesting. Everybody gives you aloo ka gutka. Everybody gives you bhatki kale soyabeen ki dal. Everybody gives you the Pahadi raita with mustard, which hits you in the head like a wasabi. Everybody gives you a madwe ki roti, and they create dishes which have never existed. I have had a Dubai return chef make aloo ka gutka with tomatoes and garam masala and dahi, which is never come across in my life of 78 years. Similarly, there is more to Pahadi khana, not only Kumaoni khana, but Garhwali khana, Uttarakhandi khana. Nobody is serving lingde ki sabzi, the fiddlehead ferns.
Fiddlehead
Nobody
Food.
is giving you the Pahadi chew, the wild morels, which are can be very fatal if not identified rightly. Nobody is serving you gaderi, which is a banda, which is a yam cooked with greens or with ground bhangira, bhanka beej, which is again non-toxic, which is used in the sabzi. In a chutney, I came across a disastrous recipe recently. A person says that leaves of hemp are ground to create a chutney, which is certainly toxic, and there is no chutney is ever made that way at all. So I think people do not make they say, oh, Corbett ka shikar, because Corbett was there and there is a Corbett National Park, or you say Ramganga ki machli ke kebab. But Uttarakhand was a poor place, and the riches of poverty were very few. So nobody had time to make a machli, debone it, make a kebab out of it, and so on. The dishes in Pahar were aloo ki thichwani, mooli ki thichwani, a curry made with rice flour with some sabzis thrown in, which is called mart. So I think nobody goes into that. But everybody tries to market the food of the region for tourism promotion and have a local thali, the Ukmauni thali, Garhwali thali, and then say, yeah, Jangure ki kheer hai. But Jangura is nothing else but barnyard millets, which is used for व्रत का खाना everywhere, samak ke chawal. So what's so great about it? And उसमें ऊपर काजू भी डाल रहे हैं, किशमिश भी डाल रहे हैं. पहाड़ में nobody had kaju and kishmish. The maximum they could do to garnish their halwa was dried khopra.
Idris wants to know that many Jama Masjid shops claim their descent from Mughlai Raghabdars. And is that true or, you know?
Oh, look. This is like the question asking the Greek ploy, no? You are to answer in yes or no. Have you started beating your wife? Yes incriminates me, no incriminates me. So I think if a Rikabdar Bawarchi says I belong to Muslim Mughal times, let him claim it. I will not believe it. I can say that I'm a direct descendant of the rishis of the Vedas just because I was born in a stupid Brahmin family. But that is stupid. You can't trace your lineage arbitrarily to sell your food in present day. Where were you 120 years before that? Forget about the right Mughal days. What were you doing on a pushcart selling aloo, gosht, and roti? Surely you had fallen into bad days. Surely your ancestors had fallen into bad days. When? When did the Mughals cease to be on the throne of Delhi? 1857. So were your parents or grandparents and great grandparents serving the Mughal court before 1857? Is there any documentary evidence to prove or record? No, I don't think so at all.
Correct.
Interesting stories, back stories to sell the food.
So a lot of compliments coming your way for a very fascinating, very honest, very well articulated talk. And Idris also wants to know if you would conduct a culinary walk in Delhi.
I would not like to do that because I think Delhi is not a city for walks anymore. I think a walk should be more than a food walk. It should be a walk with food. It should take you to heritage. It should take you to monuments. It should take you to untangible heritage like music, dance, painting, and food should be added to it when you
Also,
are. But Delhi, with toxic, most polluted city status, uh, to put a mask on your face and have a health hazard of that somebody will run you over, unlicensed driver or a road rage, I don't think is a great fun to have. I mean, those who are laughing their way to the bank in Old Delhi food walks, they are welcome to it. I would not risk the life of my own life and life of my guests taking a walk in Delhi anymore.
sir, so many people would also want to hear more from you, even though today's talk is almost done. Would you like to
I
share
would,
your
I would, I would do,
podcast?
I would do a bit of shameless self-promotion. I'm doing two
Please do.
small blogs. One blog is on YouTube. It was done for Down to Earth with Sunita Narayan and Vibha Varshney. Biodiversity, livelihood, environment, and food. It's called Dal Bhat. 8 episodes are there. Second season, Green Kitchen. Green Kitchen, second season, 8 episodes on YouTube. Then I have done another 8 episodes of interesting stories. I think interesting. Others may find them interesting or boring. This is called Food 9, Food Files. This is a TV9 Bharatvarsh digital thing. They again are in YouTube. You go to Food Files and we talk of pulao, biryani, samosa, etc.
Lovely. That's something to look forward to hear more from you, both Green Kitchen and Food Files. And of course, if you haven't yet read the books, you must go and get the books and read them. Thank you so much. That was an absolutely delightful talk. And I know that everyone who's been listening to you is going to be running to their kitchen because you've left us all very, very hungry for food and more. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pushpesh Pantji. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this Saturday evening. Look forward to having you next week as well. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone.